Hello, and welcome to Fearless with Udwak Amimo. My guest on today's episode of the podcast is the Portuguese Angolan activist Myriam Taylor. Her professional journey started in political theatre. She has since gone on to found and hold the Humanity Summit, an annual gathering designed to address the world's most pressing challenges. She does many other things. Miriam, welcome and thank you for joining me on Fearless.
Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, Sister Udwak. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So, Miriam, your journey begins in Angola during the civil war in the 70s. Your parents flee to Portugal. What do those early experiences do to you as a child? How do they shape your childhood?
Okay, I think that perhaps we need to go a little bit further back because I'm informed by the journey of all my ancestors, of all the ones who preceded me, but uh, on my immediate relations, so to say, my mother and my grandparents, they have had, as you can imagine, a great influence on myself because they are the closest generation to mine. And therefore, to put it in perspective, my grandfather was part of a process called the 50th process. That's how it would be, more or less, the translation into English. It's called Processo 50, Processo 50. And the 50th process, it was a process that took place during the 50s and was led by a group of political activists, conscious individuals who were Pan Africanists and who opened up the possibilities for what was to become the liberation movements in Angola. My grandfather from my mother's side, Avô Mário, he was a missionary as a nurse. Uh, so he went from mission to mission, from country to country, from city to city, state to state, and he used that opportunity to galvanize the workers and to inform them about their possibilities, about the possibility of dreaming, because I guess that's perhaps um, the lack of the ability of an individual to project himself in other places rather than what he believes to be the only truth. It's perhaps one of our biggest handicaps as a community globally, because many of the people from our community cannot, imagine what could be different from the reality they've got. So my grandfather was part of that movement that opened up, as I explained, space for the liberation movements. And my mother, years later, she became also a political activist. She was part of the MPLA initially, and then, the MPLA, which was Movimento Popular de Angola, which was one of the many political parties fighting for the rights of freedom and independence of our countries. Um, they had a division inside the party. So they created two different opposition groups inside, so to say. And my mother left that party and joined the FNLA. Long story short, when the Portuguese supposedly gave independence to Angola, instead of calling for elections, we didn't have elections. The Portuguese just handed in the power into this political party, which is MPLA. and MPLA has been ruling ever since. So this is how my mother and my father had to flee to Portugal, because we dived back in 1976, right after the independence. We dived into a civil war, which lasted for almost 40 years. And that's how I ended up being in Portugal. And my parents ended up coming here as refugees, and I ended up being born here in the same year they were arrived. And
Because they fled while they were pregnant with
sorry,
you. They fled while they were pregnant
indeed,
with you.
indeed. My parents had to drive from northern part of Angola to Congo at first, and then in Congo they catch the airplane after, I don't know, a month after they arrived in Congo, and they came to Portugal. Yes, my mother was indeed pregnant. They arrived here around January 76, and I was born in July, early July, July 3rd. Yeah, 48 years.
What Yeah, what does that do to you? You've given us a background, you've told us whose shoulders you stand on, you painted this background of a politically active family and background. But what does that do to you as a child? What does that do to you, to your childhood?
It
How does that shape you?
Yeah, it it informs. It doesn't determine who you will become, because ultimately it's your choice. And we are two daughters from the same parents, and we chose totally different pathways, so to say. But it informs you in a way, in a sense that I have had nothing for granted. Everything I had in my life, I was told that I would have to fight for. I learned at a very young age, because I was a woman, because I was a black woman, I would have to, and a black woman, not in a country where we, the black people, are the majority, but pretty much the contrary happens, and where we are still invisibilized in so many fronts. Um, my parents told me that I would have to fight for the things I wanted, because no one would ever, you know, give us, so to say. So I think it was that drive of understanding that that there are other possibilities beyond the perceptions that are given to us, or the things that people make us believe that are possible. I think it was that eagerness of willing to help reshape the world into a place where more people would fit, and more people would feel represented, and more people would feel that they can be part of the solution, because it's really about that, right? The world is broken. It has been broken for many, many years, I guess, because of the system we are in. And when we dig into the roots of the causes of all this, that's when you understand, you know, the amount of work that it's still needed to be done. But
Mhm.
but yes, indeed, my past has informed who I am, has helped shape who I am, but does not dictate who I become necessarily. Yeah.
Miriam, what do you see of your parents' experience as refugees? What do you experience because you grew up as a
I
refugee?
was born while my parents were still in a refugee compound. Um, what did I experience? Many things.
What
From
did your
my
parents experience?
parents, from being underpaid, although my parents had higher education, when they arrived to Portugal, so that obviously gave them greater access, so to say, than the majority of the people coming. But when it comes to, okay, my father had the opportunity to become a director in a big hotel company group. However, he was always underpaid because he was who he was. And not only that, like, for instance, the I remember many times when we thought that we were going to change houses, like giving you an example. But then they realized that my mother was going to be living in a house, or, for instance, because my parents, they have different shades. Although my parents are both black, my mother is darker skinned than my father. And what happened was that my father made a initial contact over the phone, and then my mother showed up to pay for the rent, for the apartment. And I remember the guy saying that the apartment was not available anymore. And this happened many times. And there was another example, for instance, when we moved to a new house. My parents bought finally a house when I was perhaps 11 years old or so. And when we moved into this new house, what happened was we started receiving anonymous phone calls and anonymous letters. And the phone calls and the letters would be saying the same, basically. Were frightening, frightening us, trying to make us scared. I used to be scared to go to school. I had to look over my shoulder because we knew that we were not welcome as neighbors,
And this is because you are
because we are
refugees,
black,
or
because we
because
are
you're
black,
black, or
because we
because
are
you're
black,
African.
because we are black. And for the collective imagination of Portuguese, regardless from the fact that you know, um, they have professionalized the kidnapping and human trafficking among black people. Regardless, although they have that as part of their history, for the collective imagination, black people, they connect it always to their origins in Africa. So for the Portuguese people, 40 years ago, black people could only come from Africa, and that was the case. We were black Africans, and we were not welcome in that building, in that neighborhood. Neither I was in that school, and I didn't feel secure many times. And just recently, I was sharing with a friend of mine a story that took place perhaps 5, 6 years ago. I went into a restaurant, and I found, as manager of this given restaurant I went to with my family, a girl who or a lady who used to be my colleague at school, and every day, every single day I came to school, she greeted me with a Nazi salute. So when she saw me, she realized, and although she never apologized to me directly, she had the opportunity to talk to my sister. So I would take it as an apology. This is to say that our experience, or my experience growing up, told me that I would have to fight, in order to stop being afraid to go to school every day. I had to learn how to fight, how to be combative, and protect myself and protect the people from my community. That's
Mm. Um, Miriam, talk to me about the irony of your parents and your grandparents agitating for independence from Portugal, and then that is where they flee to for a
yeah,
sanctuary.
it is an irony. Don't even, yeah. I think we are caught up in this thing, which is um, which is the language they force on us. I guess that for any, not for all the people from my family, many people from my family would never come to Portugal as a principle. They would rather go to any other country, maybe in any other imperial country, but not to Portugal as a principle. But to tell the truth, how did they ended up here? Many years ago, we spoke about it while my father was still alive, and it was never meant to be forever. They came here. They thought they were going to stay here for maximum 6 months a year. As a matter of fact, when my parents arrived, on the same day they arrived to Portugal, because since they initiated their journey leaving home in Angola, over 30 days had passed. So there was no internet, and information didn't travel the same speed it does to nowadays. So my father actually, when they arrived with, the only thing they had was the clothes they were carrying on their bodies and the money that they had from the car they sold in Congo. Because as I explained to you, they ran away at first by car from side from yeah, from northern part of Angola to Congo. So they had that money. So my father, when they arrived, my father went straight to the ticket office for the Portuguese air company, and he asked for tickets to go back. He said, "Oh, it might be better now. I'm sure they have, sorted it out. So could you please sell me tickets to go back?" And the lady at the ticket office told him, "Oh no, it's still in a big mess. I'm sorry to tell you, but you will have to go for a few months to the Algarve, and then after it settles down, you will go back."
Okay, it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, because they never
And
did.
it's very
They
stressful.
never did go back. Well, they went for holidays, but not, as they planned. My father passed away. Mhm. So, yes, so answering your question regarding the irony, yes, it is pretty ironic, but I think that we all have the Stockholm syndrome as well.
Okay.
And in another way, it's like these people owe us as well, right? We have all the
Which
right,
people? Which
the Portuguese people, they owe us. It's like coming here, it's also claiming what is yours.
we'll get into that a bit as we talk, about, the work that you've
Mm-hmm.
done. Are you
Mm-hmm.
okay? Do you want a
No, it's
moment?
fine.
You're fine. Because you then, like your parents, begin to move around. So you grow up in Portugal, you're faced with racism as a child in school, you feel unwelcome. You learn early that you've got to fight your way through to create space for yourself. You moved to London, you moved to the United Kingdom to study theatre. What informs that decision? And how does that build or challenge your sense of
Yeah.
self? I can give you a minute to get some
Yeah.
tissue.
Let me just. So basically, I think that narratives inform. There are places where you don't have
And where do you learn that? Where do you learn that narratives inform, that narratives
narratives
are powerful?
inform, narratives shape. You know, collective imagination is informed about through winning narratives. But who chooses what's going to be the narrative? So I,
Where do
at
you
the
learn
time
that?
when I had to decide what to pursue, what to pursue at university, I was already doing theater. I already thought that the arts would be a good way to influence, and I was already engaged in a political party. So at that time, I thought that I wanted urgently create alternative narratives that would propose, you know, different views and, and inform differently the collective imagination. Because I felt like you probably felt the same, that the majority of the narratives that were being created, although trying to portray us, did not represent us because it was not us doing them. Well, many times you had not even to talk about black faces. Let's just talk about the ways any narratives are presented. We are always objects, never the subject. We are never even in ownership of telling our own truth regarding that certain subject. Do you understand? So basically, my urgency was, or what I thought at the time was, okay, I will choose to study theater. My urgency will be to produce narratives that will be a countercurrent, or if you will, offer alternatives to what exists, and slowly and gradually being able to reshape the world through narratives. That's what I thought. And then I studied theater, and I specialized in political theater. And I gradually moved into policy making. So being in touch with the political theater, I worked with a gentleman named Auguste Boal. And Auguste Boal created a genre which allows you to work on the intersection. Let's say that he forms what he calls coringas. Coringas are jokers. That's my how do you say, speciality. I'm a joker, and the joker, it's a facilitator between civil society and and governments, or corporations. That's what the Joker does. It's not a Joker that will make you laugh. No, it's a Joker that will be this facilitator in the co-creation of public policy, of recommendations, and the form we do it. It's not only in the form of theater, but it's in the form of documentation that is produced in collaboration with the press.
So look, I need to stop you because this is
Yeah.
interesting. But I want to understand what exactly is political theater. I understand that within the realm of political theater, there is room for the joker. In drama, the jester, in the court, the person, and within our African tradition, the griot, the person who sings and, tells all sorts of stories, within which the truth is hidden, obliquely, so as not to attract any sort of, shooting of the messenger. This is your role. But what is political theater?
So political theater, it's a theater that it doesn't, it shifts. Let's say that it shifts the perception of theater. You don't just go to the theater for the art for the art. You go to the theater. The type of theater that will make you think, that will make you act, that will invite you to become a spectator, where you are not just a passive observer, where you become a co-creator of the reality. Um, in this type of theater, what we do, well, you had several practitioners throughout history of drama, but this particular theater practitioner I worked with, he would have over 100 years if he was still alive. He created the theater of the oppressed. The theater of the oppressed offers different type of techniques, and one of the techniques that I am pretty much a fan of, it's a legislative theater. Through this all different types of techniques, from the uh, all the types different types of techniques he presents and offers, can lead to the possibility of co-creating alternative realities, where the participants are offered the opportunity to rehearse the future, where we bring, let's say that, I'll give you an example. I work throughout my life with different communities, with different groups, where we apply this type of theater. Let's say that we work with, for instance, domestic violence victims, with housemaids, and in the type of approach that we had with the domestic violence victims, for instance, we rehearse their actual events. Let's say that they come with a story where, in a certain situation, in a given situation, they say something which triggers violence in someone outside themselves. And this violence comes back to them. Let's say that there's something that they do. Let's say that it's just a wife, yeah, who decides to wear.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. I need because there's so many light bulbs and flashes and things happening in my brain at the
Hmm,
moment. So, theater of the oppressed, and then you have legislative theater, and now you're giving us a scenario of domestic violence. um, and as you're describing it for me, I'm hearing elements of improv.
yeah,
Okay,
okay.
carry on, just to make sure that the light bulbs are
Yeah.
connected.
So basically, in a given scenery, where a lady comes and shares with us a story of her coming home from shopping, arriving wearing a certain type of clothes that triggers violence in her partner. So she explains to us exactly how it happens, and then we try to rehearse the reality. First, we do it the way it is, and then we try to create a story where we try to empower her so that she can, in a similar situation, come come over it. Yeah. And what are here the possibilities? Obviously, when we are talking about violence, there is only one way. We recommend them to leave the house immediately, and obviously, redirect them to different organizations who offer support for mothers and ladies in this type of situation, because in many times they have financial dependence too. This is so broad. But this is to say, what we do, we rehearse. We rehearse reality to a point where we also consult legislation. We see what is there that they can do, or that the the institutions, the existing institutions, what are the responses that exist. And when, in cases where something does not exist yet, or was not thought through yet, we co-create solutions, and then we present them to governments, and we try to lobby them so that they become a reality. So the type of work that Augusto Boal uh, has created through the theater of the breast has pretty much informed the type of work I do today. Although I drifted away from the theater, I still work on the intersection of civil society and corporations and governments. I consider myself a joker. That's what I am. I am a facilitator, but I'm a joker. I'm a joker. The joker bears the bad and the good news. Many times the bad news, but with a smile. But the type of joker I am, I'm not a news bearer, but instead I come with recommendations, and I try to lobby the co-creations from the civil society, and I try to make them
So,
tangible.
Miriam,
Yeah.
Miriam, I'm interrupting you to ask very quickly. This is the work you do through Mushima
Yes,
Bio.
true.
Could you, in a minute or so, um, do give us a scene, step into your role as a joker, and give us recommendations for anything that you're working on. But just I would love to see it, to
Mhm.
experience it, but also for our listeners to experience that. Just a very brief you in your joker role.
Okay, let's say that ultimate thing I've been working on, or venture, so to say, is the humanity universe of things. The humanity is not only the Humanity Summit itself, but it brings the Humanity Pact. The Humanity Pact it's a tool. It's basically 25 holistic objectives, which were co-created by 45 countries, let's say 110 individuals from 45 countries, and it offers this group of holistic objectives which have been uh, reverse engineered and were co-created from bottom up. So the majority of the co-creators of this pact, they came out of the Permanent Forum of People of African Descent. This is to say that this is a pact which is completely informed by intersectional feminism and by critical race theory. And this pact establishes the goals, which were reverse engineered, where we have co-created roadmaps. We have co-created roadmaps for all types of organizations, to governments, institutions, universities, hospitals, making everyone accountable. The roadmap, it's a
Okay.
roadmap for 10 years. It allows us to accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. And the twist towards this humanity pact is the fact that it allows us to fulfill the promise of democracy. Democracy is only a promise to be fulfilled. And in order to do so, only voting is not enough. We want to be part of the solutions and be part of the decisions of how our money is going to be spent, right? So imagine if, instead of being hijacked by political parties, which are informed by corporations, and this is what informs legislation today, serves corporations and serves the interests of whoever owns the land and the wealth. Instead of it, imagine if we could claim the political, social, cultural, economical, and educational agendas to ourselves, the people.
I need to stop you for a minute. I don't know whether you're in Joker mode or whether you're giving me the
Now
context.
I'm giving you the
Um,
context. Into the Joker, I am a lobbyist. That's what I do. Nowadays, what I do is
so,
lobbying. When I say I identify myself as a Joker, it's because that's where I have drunk from. That's what has fed in.
so do you perform the role or do you
It's not,
lobby the
it's not
role or
performance. It's a role. I'm a lobbyist. That's what I do. That's
okay.
uh,
So when you explained it, and I think there's a language issue
yeah.
here, when you explained it, I saw it as a
No, it's not a
performance.
performance. It's very serious
Okay.
work. So let me just try to explain to you the pact,
Okay.
if I can, in short sentence. So imagine
Okay.
a world where finally we, the people, could claim all the political agenda and economic agenda and educational agenda, migration pacts, all these issues that are so, difficult uh, for some governments to deal with. And the reason for that, the difficulty, it's not because there would not be practical solutions. It's because it's convenient to keep the system the way it is. I'll be very practical and put you in perspective. Imagine that you would whack, you are running for mayor of your town. And when running, you promise to everyone that on the day you win, on the next day, you will put everyone in an airplane and bring them all to Portugal. But then you win. But instead of coming to Portugal, your airplane stops in Ukraine. And then there is the whole journey, and we don't see Portugal on this, on the stops. We see a whole journey. It's taking more than 3 years, and we don't see Portugal on the list of countries to visit. And then the people inside the airplane who voted for you ask you, "So what the hell, Udwag? You promised you would take us to Portugal," and you say, "Oh, we have 4 years." And in fact, you have 4 years for a mandate, and then by the end of the fourth year, it's a 5 years mandate. The end of the fourth year, you say, "Well, perhaps you need to re-elect me so that I can finally take you to Portugal." So imagine that instead of having to just believe you, we offer you a pact where we say, "Okay, Udwak, you promised taking us to Portugal. That's good enough. So imagine that we have the algorithm that will allow you to quicker take us to Portugal without spending so much public money, because it's always a matter of keeping things the way they are because it's convenient, it's profitable, you know." And the system we have created with the Humanity Pact, which is a system, it's a new system, philosophical, economic, etc., etc., cultural. It's a new system. It's a system that has basically created the algorithm to go from one place to from where we are to where we want to become, where we want to be. So we have these 25 objectives, which are aligned with the SDGs, but a lot more ambitious than the SDGs, because the SDGs don't recognize racism as the roots of the causes for everything that is on the SDGs. Yeah, because SDGs, in fact, they ignore racism. Let's say, as they don't state it um, um, as an objective to end racism as an object. And that for us shows how it fails to acknowledge the roots and the causes for all the SDGs. So the majority of the anti-racist organizations and the people who work, like myself, on anti-racism, when we look at the SDGs, we say, not really, not really. So the way to do it, instead of course, we cannot erase them. It's there. It's an instrument. How can we improve them? So that's how the Humanity Pact was created. And it was co-created by a majority of anti-racist organizations from 45 different countries, 110 individuals, from high school individuals to former vice presidents, yeah, like the former vice president, as I explained to you, of Costa Rica. She's part of our co-creation, pact co-creation, EPSI Campo. It's one example. I can give you Mariana as an example, who is a girl who is half Roma, half African, and she's 17 years old. To give you an example, from postdoc to high school individuals, we tried to really have a diverse group of individuals from different ages, different ethnicities, majority black, true, but intersections of black, yeah, people who intersect with other with other spheres, yeah. So this is to say, this set of objectives offers roadmaps to achieve them, so that Woodwalk will not be wasting public's money for 4 years or five until she delivers what she's supposed to deliver. Imagine, this is crazy. This is already too crazy. But crazy or not, we were lucky enough to have the Imperial College supporting our idea. And
The Imperial College in the UK.
yes, the Imperial College of London, the Greenwich University of London, the UCOP, University of California Office of the President. This is just to name a few of the institutions who are supporting the initiative of the pact. So, as a lobbyist and as an organization, our duty now is to advocate towards the pact. The more people start using our instrument, the better. The fact it's never finished can always be improved, because there will always be space for someone to come and say, hey, I have invented teletransport, and I can actually teletransport everyone from Germany to Portugal in a second. Doesn't matter. We want the best practices shared. There is place and space to accelerate the global exchanges, to integrate the best practices with proven concepts and replicate them. There is no reason why we shouldn't advance humanity in different fronts, and everyone at the same time. All we need is willingness. It's willingness and belief. Because if we are still, victims of the Stockholm syndrome, then we will not try, because there is not even, why would we try? Because we are so good with these guys, the way they are. It's enough. No, we should be able to think beyond what exists, because.
Okay. So I have
Mm,
several questions for you. Some of them intersect, and some of them stand alone, and some of them I'm asking everyone on this series. And a couple of things are intersecting for me. One, it's victim and victimhood, right? You've just mentioned victim, and I think you mentioned it earlier in terms of being victims of Portuguese colonialism. There is your life's work, the theme of
mhm,
oppression and fighting against it. There is also a two sided thing happening, whereas you're fighting against racism, but you're also fighting for humanity.
mm,
And so, with all of that, if there was a word cloud in my mind, oppression is in big letters, victim is in big letters, maybe not as big as oppression, but oppression. and victim. There's racism, maybe similar to oppression. And then there's humanity, which might be on the same level as oppression. How do you navigate these seemingly discordant yet connected themes? And how then do you navigate to a place of agency? Because in terms of agency, there is the rehearsal of alternative futures. In terms of agency, you've talked about reimagining better. And so, what do you say to people with this heavy legacy, but also the seeds and the work towards a future where everyone, that is co-created by
Yeah.
everyone,
But for that,
but
you need
also
to,
one where everyone thrives?
but for that, you need to acknowledge the past. You need to face the pain, face the dirt, understand what has happened, and it's going to be painful and dirty, yes, but it's necessary to deal with it, because unless we see it, we will never be able to overcome it. But at first, people need to acknowledge that that has happened and how it has happened and how it's still affecting millions and millions of lives. Just last May, I was in Geneva, and I get to know people who did their DNA test and they found out that they are originally from Angola or from Mozambique. And they came to me because they knew I was in the room. They came to me, and automatically, as you explained, we have this Stockholm syndrome. We do. We all always refer to the colonizer. What has made those people come to me is the fact that we all speak what? The same Portuguese language, the same colonizer's language. They didn't even knew Portuguese before they found out about their ancestry. But after they found out in the US, they went on learning what? Portuguese. Isn't that a paradox? It is, right? Because what we claim the cultures we did not inherit. We claim the fact that I don't speak Imbundo. I don't speak Imbundo. Now I can, and I should try to find the time to do so, because there are different ways to do it. Uh,
Imbundo is your parents' language in
Kimbundo,
Angola,
it's one of my parents' languages in Angola, yes. Uh, uh,
and you took the name of your business,
Mushime,
Mushima, from Angola as
it's a
well.
Kimbundo word, means love. Um, but from my grandmother's time, my grandmother was the last person in our family to speak Kimbundo. She didn't pass it on to her kids because they could not. The language was forbidden. She had to speak Kimbundo without the Portuguese paying, noticing it or finding out, because this the assimilation process was very brutal. It really denied, you had to strip yourself away from your identity. So it's necessary to understand history. It's necessary to dig through all our past, acknowledge all this, so that we can look in front and understand what is there to be done. Because when we talk about reparations, this is what we're talking about. It's about rescuing the right of identity. We did not have the right to be who we are, not even in our own country. Imagine when we came here. And still prevails. The same happens nowadays. And as you know, the far right is gaining ground all over the world, and in Europe in particular. So once more, we are being questioned about the right to exist in our identity. It's not because,
Sorry, let's just for people who don't necessarily follow European and Western politics too closely, let's, address the far right in a sentence or
yeah,
two. Political force that seeks, to curtail migration, and I would say upholds um, an extreme ideology of
far right has indeed an extreme ideology against migration, and they are white supremacists. They believe in the supremacy of the white race. The far right has gained more notability worldwide during the Second World War through its big leader Hitler. So what we're talking here now, it's about a revival, but where people are not afraid to rock Hitler's t-shirts anymore, and and discourses. And the problem is that we have these people have infiltrated all departments in Europe, all institutions, which is making our lives. When I say our lives, I say our. I refer to not to the black community in general, but all racialized, all non-white are at stake, are at risk here, basically all non-white people or people who are perceived as LGBTQI plus. You know, these are the victims and women. These are the people they like to persecute because they are against feminism. They are against equal rights. They are really against equity. This is what is at stake, and they are the ones that have these brilliant ideas of creating these concentration camps around Europe and in the US, the far right. You could say that is also led by Trump. I think this is a good context, and people will understand when we talk about the far right in the Western context. So,
I have to interject that I'm not sure that Donald Trump leads the far right, but he does seem to capitalize on the political
now
momentum
he is
that exists.
certainly one of the leaders of the far right globally. Yes. Uh,
I
yeah.
think
Yes.
this.
They have connections to the leader of the far right in Portugal. The leader of the far right in Portugal is supported by the US, by Bolsonaro in Brazil. So there is a far right club. They are really well connected and supportive of each other, which we don't have in the other scope, so to say. And the reason why
Let me
it's far
challenge that
right
because
dangerous. Let's just put this in perspective, and I need to be very clear.
yeah,
Why
it is
is
dangerous, but I want to come back
okay?
to you. No, Miriam, I want to come back to you because yes, the demagogues and the authoritarians are connected, but you have just given us an example, a powerful example of connection of people tracing their ancestry and coming to you, a person they don't know. And the context of our conversation is responsible, courageous, and transformative leadership. I take your point that we have to examine the past in order to move forward. At what point do we leave the past? At what point do we say that we have the power to create alternative futures, given what it sounds like is the responsibility you're demonstrating, the courage you're showing in rehearsing alternative futures in terms of the transformation? How do we transform ourselves from victims to survivors? Because you have survived. Racialized people around the world have survived. People are surviving in spite of everything. It's not easy, yes. And we call it out when we see it. But surely, um, the fact that people have survived continue to survive means that we can build into flourishing and thriving.
Yes, true. Um, just talking about, yes, we are survivors for excellence, I guess. Just the fact that we survived all this human trafficking throughout all these years, and we're still here. It's amazing. But sorry, I think I missed your question.
I think for me, it was more of challenging you, um, to say that yes, the leaders in the world who espouse far right extremist ideologies are connecting, but you are also demonstrating the power of
Mm.
connection, of responsibility, of courage, of transformation. And so when we say that we must look at the past, and this is true, but at what point do we say the past is
The
done
past is not done.
and we are
I
victims?
don't.
Hang on, let me finish my
Mm,
question. The past is
mm,
done, and we move forward, not as victims, but as survivors, whatever that looks like. Because I'm thinking, you come from theater. I work with words in a different way as a journalist, as a coach, as a facilitator. Which mindset, and it's the same set of circumstances, but which mindset moves us forward? Is it the victim or is it the survivor?
what makes us move forward? It's the survivor, obviously. But I guess to go back to your point, I believe in a general uh, in the general theory of relativity, which states that time, space, and matter are interconnected. And I also believe that time being also interconnected in itself means that past, present, and future are interconnected. So when you say the past is not what I believe. I believe that today is the past and today is the future. So if past, present, and future are together, in fact, as it should always be, because you are the echoes, you carry the legacies. You represent. You represent everyone who preceded us, Sister Uduak. How can you say the past is done? Not for us, not for African people. Our past is very much present. This is why we cult our ancestors, and we pay the tribute to all our ancestors. I'm just feeling them all here now. So, past, present, and future is together. And this is to say that what we do today has an impact. Yes, indeed, has an impact. But what pulls us forward, it's probably not not that we make victims of ourselves. We are victims, but we don't victimize ourselves. We are resilient. We are warriors. We are survivors. We are kick-asses. If we were here to, to just feel pity on ourselves, we wouldn't come this far. We would not we would not have survived. We would not have survived for sure, you know. So what makes us go forward? In one hand, indeed, it's our survivor instinct. On another hand, I think that we are actually pushed forward. We are pushed by our ancestors, because it's not even only us, because I'm not working only on my own. I'm never only on my own. Sometimes I don't even know why I'm there. So I'm just, being a channel to manifest uh, my ancestors' demands. I'm here to fulfill a promise, sister.
Miriam, this is heavy work. It's a lot of work. And we've gone through all sorts of deep and heavy emotional terrain. How do you look after yourself?
Sometimes I don't, you know. Sometimes I don't, and you collapse. Other times I do with psychoanalysts. Um, I am very thankful for the fact that I'm surrounded by many sisters who, always try to help me look after my mental health, because that's key. Because it's very heavy. We inherit a lot. It's already heavy just to be alive. Just coming here, just out of the womb, and we already need a. Because we suffer from collective trauma, and again, this is not victimizing us. This is a fact. It's not to. It's just, and this is why past, present, and future, they are all interconnected. And looking after yourself, you're looking after your community. And I'm saying it to yourself and listening. So yes, I need to look after myself more often, so to say.
You've shared some of the difficulties along your professional journey. What have been the darkest moments and what have been the most rewarding moments?
The darkest moments in my professional journey are the moments when you are betrayed by people who you wouldn't expect, I guess, like, people who you consider family and community, friends. I think, apart from, forget about not being able to fund your projects, forget about the difficulties in finding the money, forget all about that. For me, the darkest is when you are betrayed. When people who really know where you came from and how difficult things are, and they are, you know, gossiping about you, or betraying you somehow. When you don't feel the support that you would need from the community, and again, it's not money support, but just the support, just the presence, just when, because we have so many battles. I had so many battles, during my life. We all have. And in the end, when you have those battles, because they are hard, what matters is the support you have surrounding you, because that's what it will make you be, stronger to conquer those. But for me, like, not having had the support from people that I would have expected, for me, it's been.
And the rewarding moments?
It's the opposite. It's to have that love and support. And one of the most rewarding moments I had was the signature of the pact last year. I was just so amazing. The quality of just the people there, just their speeches, and and the spirit that was inside that room was just something out of this world. And imagine, it was because of that last day that we were invited to be at a G20 side event this year. So I guess it went really well. Everyone who was in the room felt it. There was some magic there.
Congratulations.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations. So you don't look after yourself, yet you're
Sometimes I
doing
do. Not all the time.
deep, heavy, and urgent work, which the world needs, Miriam. And the point of this podcast is to inspire people. Um, what lessons can we take from your story, from your journey, both personally and professionally?
Um, what lessons could we take from my journey? I work with one principle, which is the principle of Ubuntu. Um, I truly believe that, you know, you are because we are, that I am because we are. I truly believe in Uno, in Ubuntu, in the principle of unity. And this is why I say that um, for me it's so important to have the community when, you know, in all moments, being good moments or bad moments, to have the presence of my tribe. It's very important. So I think the advice I would give would be to for people to work towards unity. They were very good at dividing us throughout history. Because imagine what we did being divided the way we are. Imagine what we could achieve if we were united. But that's too powerful. Because imagine if we organize ourselves in a way where we create actually a black economy. Imagine the day that we will be able to inspire our countries back home to create a reserve. These are things that are not convenient for the Western world. So I think it's part of their plan to keep us divided. So my one advice would be work towards unity. Regardless, there will be times where you think, oh, there are so many people that I don't necessarily agree with. But that's life. I think the challenge is to be able to create bridges, even with people that usually you would not necessarily agree with, because that's life. That's what we are supposed to do, is to aggregate and to integrate and to, you know, to make every person that feel like they have contributed. And for that, we cannot shut doors at anyone. So my one advice is work towards unity, create a tribe, feed into your tribe, and work towards unity. Try to look for networks of us everywhere you go.
And the question to close, you're a facilitator, I also facilitate. So your live journaling prompts, Miriam, what is your deepest fear for yourself?
My deepest fear for myself, my deepest fear for myself. I think it's to lose my freedom. Because
What is your deepest fear for the world?
um, my deepest fear for the world, it's to, I guess, is to see the far right grow. It's it's already
It's heavy.
it's
What's the
already
last
happening. My biggest fear.
Yeah. What's the last thing you did that scared you?
The last thing I did that scared me. Um, Apart from flying, because I don't like flying. Does it has to be apart from flying? Because I hate flying. I actually do.
Okay, so that's the last thing you did that scared you is flying. You flew somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I hate flying, and yeah, it was a flight from Brazil to Portugal just last month. Um,
That should
I
be
am,
funny.
sister,
That's
and let
that's
me tell
a
you,
lot.
I am fearless.
Yes, no, no, which is why I'm speaking to you. But
Unless,
flying is the one thing that scares you. And so, what are the three things in your fearless toolkit?
okay, that I use as protections or what?
To keep you
From
from feeling less fear,
birth.
or to keep you being
I am
fearless.
trying to
Yeah.
pull it up so that I show you. Wait, it's a necklace from my orisha. So I am the daughter of Emanjá com a with a Oxóssi here.
Okay.
So this is one protection.
From your
Yeah,
spiritual leader,
here.
your spiritual
Yes.
teacher, your
Mm,
Risha. Okay. You were a neck thing.
yes.
Okay. What-
I try not to have any, not to be dependent on any outside objects, or this is the only thing I carry with me all the time, and I feel comfortable with it, but still I don't feel dependent on it. So apart from that, what I carry at all times, it's my spirituality, my belief in God, my deep belief in God. Yeah.
All right, then, Miriam. Thank you so very much. So we know you as Miriam
Yes.
Taylor, but I believe there is a bit more to your name.
Yes.
Could you say goodbye to us and to the audience in the fullness of who you are and in the fullness of your
In the
name?
fullness of my name. Oh my God, how? How would I say that? You want me to say all my name? Yeah? Okay. I am Miriam Cristina Campos Chafredo dos Reis, Taylor de Carvalho. And it was a true pleasure to be here, Sister Uduak, and share this time with you on your Fearless podcast. And it was a true joy to share part of my story with you. And I hope to be able to invite you to one of my podcasts in the future too.
Thank you so
Thank
very much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.